All right, someone's got the CNN going there.
I turned it off.
Is that, oh, hi, Jane.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Jane. Oh, hi, Becca. Good to see you, or at least see your name. And Barry's here as well. Okay, cool. So for some of you, it might be too soon to get a lot of jumping and bounding in, but for others, you're going to be ready for it. So for those of you that are ready for it, definitely do these lateral jumps or broad jumps or something that represents an explosive movement. Then it takes us into a walking lunge or perhaps a weighted walking lunge. And what I cautioned everyone against on the blog under the intended stimulus or under the workout notes, one of those two things is if you have somebody that's new or newish at this, cycling through 6 to 8 rounds of 20 walking lunges, you understand the devastation in terms of 2 days of soreness for that. So scale that back for those that need to scale it. And then we've got the sumo deadlift high pull. Now this is the one that if we were at the hut, we would load this up with a barbell, maybe 40/30 kilos. Most of you don't have a kettlebell that's that heavy, but I want you to go as heavy as you can with a kettlebell, really driving that up. It's the hip pop and the pull. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My calves are nice and warmed up right now. I'm going to continue with that and just getting into a downward facing dog and pedaling out the calves, right? Hamstrings and calves. And you don't have to count the number of repetitions here, but we're going to go for another 20 seconds and you should be able to get in 30 or 40 more repetitions total between right and left. And then once you get that, come up to standing. We're going to do these lateral hip shifts. And I can feel these in the alternate and the opposite right glute. So we warm up some hips. So what today's big lateral jump does is, again, it moves us from this constant sort of movement in this one direction. And so now we're going to be going back and forth and side to side. Go a little bit wider with the legs. Open up some adductors or warm up some adductors a bit. Keeping both heels on the ground, just moving side to side. So now we're going to take a lateral jump. Just don't jump over anything, but just a lateral jump to the side, land, get an air squat, stand. Bring your feet together, use your arms to do a little jump to the side, get your footing, and then an air squat. Please get 8 more of these. Jump and land, lateral air squat. What we're doing right here is just testing out whether or not you think getting in 6 to 8 rounds of 25 of these things is going to be good for you. So we're warming that up just to kind of see what it's like. Now, some of you that did a lot of these the other day, or those of you whose knees aren't going to take that much lateral jumping, I know Lori, Andy, maybe Eric, you might be going to a weighted step up for the lateral jump. So move over to something that you can do some step ups on. And for those of you that are ready, you can start dropping into some single-legged squats by way of this step lunge. So box step ups or a couple of lunges. All right, we have Joanna and Eric here, live from their garage / photography studio. Oh, Jenny and Arya. Hi, good to see everyone. Yeah, Lori's here. So Lori, decide on that. I think not the lateral jump, right? But maybe some box step ups, some weighted step ups right into a weighted lunge. It's going to be challenging on the legs, but then you have a little bit of a break from the legs with the sumo deadlift 5 pulls. All right, let's move to a position where you get a little bend in the knee, hands on the thighs, and just warm up the hamstrings with a Romanian deadlift. I have, again, my actual rather than proverbial broomstick. I'm just going to get some movements through here with either Romanian deadlifts or a set of good mornings. Right? The idea here is just pushing the hips back and getting the hinge at the hips and warming up some hamstrings. So if you have your PVC pipe out, or even just your hands up overhead, belly tight, and finding that hamstring stretch. And then move over to a kettlebell. It can be your lighter one if you have 2 of them, or the one if you have just a single kettlebell. And let's go ahead and get in about 6 deadlifts. Stand up tall, and then slowly push the hips back, keep the belly tight, and lower to the ground on the way back down. So that's eccentric loaded, slowly lowering back to the ground and getting about 8 of those. Following those 8 deadlifts. Now today, as you warm up the kettlebell work, I want some of you to move to a profile. Keep going, Becca. I'm gonna highlight your picture right here. It's really easy for me to look at Becca's flat neutral spine position, right? Which she's got a nice neutral spine. It's easy for me to see that when I've got a profile view, right? So if you can all at some point here, give me a profile view. Great, Jane. You'll notice that maybe there's a couple people using a barbell today. That's great, Scott. Good rigid neutral spine. And I want to see, okay, tuck chin in just a little bit, Barry, so that you're looking more to, yeah, that's it. So you're looking more towards the ground in the bottom of the movement. Now, if I were an offensive lineman or in World War I in the movie 1917, right, I wouldn't take my eyes off the horizon for anything. Right? Because as I'm treating that medic that's on the ground and that plane is flying at me, I wouldn't have seen it if I'm looking down at the ground. But to maintain rigid neutral spine, that position has my gaze looking at the ground if I have a neutral neck or cervical spine. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that in the real life, it doesn't actually transfer very well. So that's all we're trying to do there. Go back over to your kettlebell and get in a set of 8 or 10 Russian swings. And if you want to move overhead into an American swing, if your kettlebell is the right weight for you for that, go ahead and get in some Russian swings. And Joe, as you put that barbell back down to the ground, make sure the knees stay out of the way every step, right? As you lower down to the ground, don't let that bar go around the knees. Push those knees back out of the way. Good. Yeah, it's much easier to take a look at your mechanics if you are showing me a side view. And now you've got a couple of different people that you may see that are doing something a little bit different. Today, Jordan is going to use a single dumbbell and get in single arm dumbbell snatches from the hang. You see Lori swinging a kettlebell instead of a dumbbell instead of a kettlebell. So that can be done by either holding both hands on the handle of the dumbbell, or you can hold, which is more difficult on the grip, just the single bell and swing it like that. So whichever one you want to do, that can work for you. So for those of you with a heavy dumbbell, that might be better to do some swings perhaps than your sumo deadlift high pulls. All right. Please take a set of 6 or 8 reverse step lunges. Now for me, I'm not going to walk all around the house doing a walking lunge because the floor is really hard. I'm going to stay here on the yoga mat and probably alternate between weighted reverse step lunges and weighted step lunges, right? The difference in that, the reverse, you step back, and then the step lunge, you step forward. So I'll probably rotate back and forth between those. Do whatever you feel makes the most sense for your situation, your knees, etc. Now let's go ahead and get, once you're done with that set of step lunges, a couple more lateral jumps. Kind of like the lateral jumps we did the other day during the Filthy 50 to jump over a single dumbbell. And notice that a height of a dumbbell, it's only 6 or 8 inches. And the volume of that dumbbell is a lot less than this medicine ball. So jumping over the dumbbell really can be done in one single set. But when we introduce the medicine ball to this, we're jumping over something that presents a cubic volume that you have to clear. And so you need to use more of that arm drive as if you were doing a box jump. And imagine jumping over, especially one of the new boxes, imagine jumping over the entire box rather than just having to jump on top of the box. And that's what challenge this presents here, is making sure you get all the way over your object. So I'm going to give you a couple of different options. If you watch the video to preview today's workout, you already know this, that I piled up a stack of towels so that if I accidentally land on the towels, then the likelihood of me getting hurt is far less than if I were to jump in the air, land on the medicine ball squirts out, and I end up falling on an outstretched arm, fracturing perhaps my collarbone or my wrist. And that's where Dr. Joe would come in. She would just tape you up and you'd be back out on the street. So make sure that that jump makes sense for you. Another way to do this, I was thinking, is if you're nervous about knocking something down, you can put a stick or a little piece of rope over something. And this can be actually a little higher to force you to get some height on your jump. But if you knocked it down, you wouldn't come crashing to the ground because you would just knock over the object. Again, much like I did yesterday when I was doing the jump over the towels and I missed accidentally. And I think I come out unscathed. So when looking at the workout here, 20 medicine ball lateral jumps, or jumping over whatever object that you're going to jump over. Every jump counts as a rep. And then a set of weighted walking lunges or step lunges. Go ahead and pick up some weights and get in a couple of step or walking lunges. Now, a couple of weeks back, I happened to comment to someone in the step lunge or the walking lunge that they needed to get off of the tightrope because they were stepping forward as if they were walking on a balance beam or a tightrope, and they had no lateral stability. It's much like if you're doing a split jerk and I take the dumbbell or the barbell overhead and I land on the tightrope, right? I want you to be in a position where the front foot is in front of the left leg and the back foot is right in line with that hip. And so it's as if you're skiing with your skis about a foot or so apart. You have much more lateral stability, right? You'll look like a beginning skier, but that's okay. So get off the tightrope in your lunge. Now again, for those of you that need a little more balance, please hold on to something when you do your step lunge. or your reverse step lunge. You notice that a lot of times when we warm up this movement at the hut, I ask you to get into a squat rack and take your first set of reverse step lunges holding on to the squat rack, just so that you can establish that solid upright position, that tight belly, and understand that you're in a good position rather than being all hunched over. So today, after I get my lateral jumps over my medicine ball, I'm going to clean the medicine ball and I'm going to take my step lunges with the medicine ball. And that's only 20 pounds. But for today, for most of you, that's heavy enough. Pick up an object and get in 6 or 8 walking lunges. Good. That's very helpful for me to see that frontal plane, that side view. So a common mistake here is to get down into this lunge and then flex the hip forward and then drive here. I want you to try and keep the torso up and think of driving that front heel into the ground as the back foot drives straight up. Match feet, or at least come up to full stance before taking your next step. So, roughly speaking, most of you have established that you're going to get in your set of jumps or your step ups or whatever you're going to use for the first movement. The second movement, we've established you're either getting in your step lunges, your walking lunges with some sort of weight, some sort of load. And notice that it's not super heavy. It's not 2 50-pound dumbbells. It's just enough that you know that you can get through 20 steps relatively unbroken, at least for the first 10 minutes or so. But it presents you with this task of keeping rigid neutral spine while the medicine ball is trying to pull you forward. Okay. So thumbs up, please, if you're good with the first 2 movements, right? You have an idea of what you're going to do.
Can I ask questions or not?
Yes, algunas preguntas. Do these apply to sort of, some people are scaling things or modifying things vastly from the entire group, so understand that that's the case. Go ahead.
Did you say forward lunges or backward lunges if we're doing them static?
Totally up to you. It tends to be, for me, what I notice is that most people tend to have more stability in a reverse lunge.
Reverse lunge, okay.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a movement with more stability that you can control a little bit better, I think the reverse step lunge is that movement. So
I have a 20-inch box, so that's too high for me. I tried, so I'm going to jump lateral over ab mat, or 2 ab mats stuck together.
Yeah, that I like, right? That is a good modification. It's much like the version that I did with the towels. So if you knock it over, then you knock it over. That's great. Then the last note, Joanna, for everyone, but I'll tell you, is that you have to use that drive of the hands coming up. It's like, I'll compare it to the barbell movement, the snatch, right? I've got my barbell. I have my wide grip. I get into this position with the arm here and I drive. There's a reason why the counter jump, if I'm going to block a volleyball, looks like a snatch in the making, right? It looks like the counter jump to then, now you don't know if I'm going to block the volleyball or pull the barbell up overhead. Similar, yet less explosive, jumping over the object, right? So that's the intention with this movement, is to mirror something like a barbell snatch or a big vertical jump. Okay. Andy, you have a question?
Yes. I'm going to do step up. Do you prefer a med ball in the front rack, or I could put a dumbbell on my shoulder?
Med ball in the front rack because it's an odd object that introduces a little more instability, and I like that with a lightweight. So go ahead.
I got a 14-pound ball. That should be fine.
That's great because this is a high volume step up. I don't want to load you down with a lot. Cool. Okay, let's move to the third movement. Get in, please. If you've got that heavier kettlebell, show me your side and get in a set of kettlebell deadlifts. So go for a set of 6 of these, 6 or 8, and in this, maybe the last 3, feel that as you drive the kettlebell up off the ground, you get a little bit of hip drive, hip pop, and you feel a little bit of a float with that kettlebell. Make sure you keep it away from your midline, if you know what I'm saying. So drive those feet through the floor and feel that you start to pop that kettlebell up. And I'm going to show you just a quick movement demo on the sumo deadlift high pull. So you have this order of events, and I'm going to use the broomstick because it's easier to illustrate that movement, right? So I have my slightly wider stance. The order of events is stand completely or drive completely. Notice that I'm bending back just a little bit, belly's tight. Then the weight flies up to just under the chin, above the collarbone. My elbows fully extend, and once they're extended, that tells me hip can flex forward. Stand, pull, drop, lower. So from the side. Stand, pull, drop, lower. Right? And with the kettlebell, it's the exact same thing. I get that kettlebell to drive up. And the piece on the way down is to fully extend the elbows, and that informs when I hinge forward. So please, let me take a look at some sumo deadlift high pulls with the kettlebell. All right, good timing, Scott. Good timing, Pam. Good, feeling that the kettlebell essentially pulls you into full extension of the elbows, and then you're going forward. Okay, Daryl. Daryl, just get 2 deadlifts. Just 2 deadlifts. Okay, take a look at me for a second, Daryl. You're getting your up is great, but you're keeping your elbows bent. Now I'm going to exaggerate a little bit. You're keeping your elbows bent as your hips are moving back. You have to let that kettlebell extend the arms and then push back. So weight on the hip hinge. Give 2 more and go. I see one thing that you can do, Daryl. Take a look at me again. So one way that you got to think about this on the way down is the hips need to move back first. And Daryl, right now on the way down, you're bending your knees forward and keeping the chest up. So think more of a kettlebell swing on the way back down. In fact, as you go more quickly through these, you might notice that you're going to set the kettlebell down back by your heels instead of in front of you. So you got to hinge forward a little more. Joanna, wait on that knee bend. Your knees are bending too early on the way down. Your hips should be a little bit higher. Yep, in your setup position. You got it. Great. Knees back. Okay, wait, Daryl. Wait on the extension of the elbows. You're still dropping down as your elbows are. That's it. And now go down, Daryl. There you go. And what'll help you as well, Daryl, is just to start your deadlift in a higher hip position. Your hips are way down here. Start the deadlift with a higher hip position. Becca, can you do a couple of these? A couple sumo deadlift high pulls? I want you to take a look at Becca, and her hip position is really high, right? And then hold your set. Oh, and I see why, because she has a single dumbbell and has to get really low down to the ground. That makes sense. Or she's got rocks in her hands, or what are those? All right, good. Just weights that she has improvised. Cool. So drop your hips a little bit back up. That's it. If you can hold that position, your hips are slightly below your shoulders. Go ahead and get 2. Ready, go. Great. That's excellent. Let me show you one thing. Let me see. Please get in 2 or 3 sumo deadlift high pulls with whatever load that you're going to use for the workout. And then I want to know if we have anybody in the group that only has a set of dumbbells. And I'm going to show you a way to improvise this a bit. If you're in a situation like Becca where she doesn't have any, she doesn't have a kettlebell. Yeah, those look great, Christine. Christine's using a barbell for these. It works very well with a barbell. And I'm gonna keep coming back to you, a few of you, including Daryl. Don't get your kettlebell set up with the hips below the knees. That's a squat setup. I want you to get in with the hips higher so you have more hip drive. And so the hips move back in the setup position. So these hips are a little higher. All right, that movement can get a little bit squatty if you rush through the sumo deadlift high pulls. All right, so we're getting 15 sumo deadlift high pulls. We don't have anybody with a set of dumbbells only, but here's what I would do just in case there's people that are watching this later. I could go with a double dumbbell deadlift, right, for just deadlifts, followed by a set of bent over rows, or I could go with a straight power clean with my dumbbells, right? That would, either one of those things would work to substitute for the sumo deadlift high pulls. Okay, thumbs up if you're ready, right? We're very well warmed up. We're at 9:25. All right, cool. Barry's got a barbell as well. Barry, just stand with a little bit wider stance so you're more in a sumo setup. So this is a 15-minute AMRAP. The intention is that you get through somewhere between 6 to 8 rounds of this. Now, clearly, if you've scaled or modified, you might get more or less, but that's where this workout, when tested in Ventura County, took people through about 6 to 8 rounds of this. That's what Jordan says. So when Julian is watching this later, right, I have another baseball t-shirt on. This is the one that says, "We cure type 2 diabetes." That's an inside joke between me and Julian. Who else? Any questions before we start? Raise your hand if you have a question and I can unmute you. Who is that? Okay, Eric.
I didn't write it down and my wife's not with me. So
Okay.
So what is 25 step ups for me?
Yep, 25 jumps or step ups.
Right.
20 weighted walking lunges.
Okay.
And then 15 sumo deadlift high pulls.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we're cycling through that as many rounds as possible in 20 Minuten. 40 Minuten. Just 15 minutes. All right. Turn your music on. We're ready to go. Barry's got the ZZ Top going out there. Right, Barry? All right. Find your medicine ball. I'll let you know this ahead of time, is when I step in to make comments on your movement, it will be on the sumo deadlift high pull. Okay, you're gonna hear some of the same things over and over. I understand that it's tough to modify movement on the fly, but if I am telling you the same thing over and over again, stop, take a breath, think about how am I going to get that movement to change, and then maybe do a couple of repetitions at a slower pace, and then start to pick up the speed. And I'll spend a lot of time today doing that. Here we go. 15-minute AMRAP, starting with the jumps in 3, 2, 1, go. So make sure you are jumping over that object. It's very frequent that whoop, get all the way over that medicine ball. Use a big swing with the arms. Yeah, there you go, Daryl. Get that big swing with the arms. All right, we're into the lunges. Remember to step off to the side rather than walking on that tightrope. I'm going to do a first set of reverse step lunges because my environment is more suited towards that. If anyone's watching me do the workout, please don't count my repetitions. I'm trying to get as close as I can. But talking and counting is not something that I'm very good at. I'm not actually good at either of them independently, so why would I be any good at them together? All right, first set of sumo deadlift high pulls. Use those arms, Eric, in the jump. You don't need it now, but setting up that motor pattern is going to be very helpful for later. It's a nice strong drive, Christine, on the sumo deadlift. Make sure that when you bring that barbell back to the ground that the knees get out of the way. Try not to prevent any forward travel of that barbell around the knees. Yeah, good swing of the arms, Scott. And now as those of you enter or get close to, hey, Daryl, push those hips way back on the way down, okay? It's getting a little squatty. Elbows high and outside, Eric, when you finish the kettlebell, right? It doesn't have to go any higher than it's going, but if those kettlebells drop, you look like a little bunny looking over the fence. And that impinges the shoulder a bit, so keep elbows high and outside. Okay. Eric, let those hips drive that kettlebell up. Don't start pulling, there you go, until the hip drive is complete. All right, we're coming up on the 4-minute mark. We're somewhere in the second or third round. On each jump, whew, I'm trying to bring my knees up so that I can clear the ball. Trying to land with soft knees, like they're big jumps, skiing moguls. Eric, weight on the arm pull. You're pulling early with the elbows. Let the hips drive that up. All right. Okay, Joanna, hold those knees back a little bit more on the deadlift on the way down because you're pushing the barbell out in front of the knees. So look forward, go ahead and stand it up. Keep looking forward. Weight on the knee bend. Wait, 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 that's better. Weight on the knee bend. Yes, that went a little bit forward again. Okay, cool. Part of it is the view, the angle that I have. Good, but just keep focusing on that. Keep those knees back. Feel like it's a Romanian deadlift on the way down. And then once that barbell passes the knees, then the knees can bend. Okay. So for those of you that are watching or doing the workout and you realize you've already cycled through 5 rounds in 6 minutes, right? It's entirely appropriate to shorten the duration of this AMRAP, especially if you haven't been doing high intensity interval training for a very long time, because this packs a punch, particularly a high volume of step lunges. Way to go, Eric. Way to stay in control of the belly, of the neutral spine as you lower that back to the ground. You have to stay in charge of your weights as you lower them to the ground, right? I talk about this being a good solid dismount. If this were gymnastics, bringing something back to the floor, including your body as it twists through space, you need to bring it back to the ground under control. Elbows high, Eric. There we go. Yeah, Becca continues to have a really solid position of the belly, of the midline in those sumo deadlift high pulls. Way to extend the elbows, Becca, before you go back down to the ground. Great, great timing. The order of operations, right? You lower that back to the ground in the same order as you brought it up off the ground. Hips, elbows, elbows, hips. Yeah, so for your lunges, keep in mind that you don't have to maintain a front rack with the ball. Eric is shifting back and forth to his right and left arm. That is Eric Hines. Eric of the Corral Canyon Erics rather than Eric of the Pacific Palisades Erics. All right, good timing there, Scott. That looks good. Letting the elbows get completely straight before hinging at the hip. Solid. Yeah, Cecily's got her sandbag or her weight for her lunges off to the side and one shoulder. Perfectly acceptable. Keep focusing on that heel, the front heel, staying on the ground at all times. Right? If that front heel comes off the ground, just assume some instability in that front knee. I don't know about you guys, but because I'm inside, I've been working out a lot more with bare feet. Some movements feel a lot better in bare feet. The step lunge is not quite as comfortable on the toes, but I actually like it for the jumping and landing. It forces me to stay cushioned. All right, those sumo deadlift high pulls look good, Damon. Let those elbows extend a little sooner before the hips hinge. That's it right there. Feel the elbows get pulled into extension with that kettlebell. And then immediately the hips hinge. And you return that back to the ground under full, complete control. Notice Jordan's on the rower for a 25-calorie row. He's changing up the stimulus just a bit because he's done this workout before. In your sumos, Dr. Joe, you can let the hips come a little bit lower in your setup position, right? And you get more quadricep drive out of that. If that helps, do it. Just looking to try and maximize power from that leg drive, right? This jump is a pretty good equal contribution from the hamstrings and the quadriceps. All right, Pam, way to get creative. That's what you do when the front rack gets tiring, as you put the medicine ball over the head. And that's nice, right? Because it creates a more difficult balance in the belly, keeping the stomach tight, trying to stabilize that overhead. All right, 3 minutes left. So we're looking at least one more round. All right, way to go, Maria. Way to use those arms to get yourself over that jump. Becca's on the jump as well. Those are good explosive jumps, Becca. All right, here we go, Marcia. What are you on? Oh, Marcia's jumping over. Good explosive jumps. I like the use of the arms. I like that we can see you in that mirror as well. We get a little view of the Pacific Ocean coming out of that mirror. You've got a great collection of dumbbells there. Good explosive jumps, Marcia. All right, Cecily's back in for the reverse step lunges, same as Damon, but he's going forward. Good, Damon, with that stable position of that heel on the ground. Good hip drive, Kim. Keep focusing on that explosive up, belly tight. Good. Let the hips drive before the arms pull. A little more hip drive. Boom. Way to go. All right, we're coming in on the 1 minute mark. All right. Everyone is unmuted now, unless you've elected not to be. Take a breath. 1 minute. Go, everyone. All right, someone has the prayer jam going. A final push. Way to get those high pulls in there, Dusty. 20 seconds. In 10. 5, 3, 2, 1, time. Everyone is still alive. That's amazing. How do we do that?
You did 4?
Please move over to your chats and type in your results. Way to go. keep in mind that I have everyone unmuted, so the heavy breathing into the microphone on your computer is loud and clear. I don't mind, but you know. Cool. That's 5 plus 23. Unknown sandbag load. I love that. Now we can't replicate it, but I don't care. Right? Sometimes it doesn't matter. You just get the work in. Right? When you move into a new house, you don't weigh each object in order to find out how much work you did. You just know when the project is over. Okay, Scott R. 4 plus 16. Wait, that's, Scott R is 5 rounds. Cool. And that's 4 plus 16, right? You please write down all your details. I'm just getting the total number of rounds and reps.
Exactly.
Write down your loading, your scaling, your modifications. Yeah, if you wrote it down, that's fine. I like to see it. Dusty got 6.
25. But with lots of modifications. So.
Eric got 7. Closing in on 8 rounds. I hear that heavy breathing. That's Carol, I think. 6 plus 6 rounds even for Laura. Right. Joanne, 4 full rounds plus 25 repetitions. Great. Okay. Becca got 5 plus 14. All right, we're seeing a lot of 5s and 6s.
Kimberly, you accidentally sent your score to just us. Will you copy and paste that? Or here, I guess we could.
Yeah, can you read it, Cecily?
Mike, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay.
This is Kimberly, what I just put in there.
Thank you. Gordon got 3 rounds, but notice he was rowing and doing front squats.
So what did you use, Eric?
Oh, wait, sorry, 14-pound medicine ball.
Okay, Christy got
Hang on.
4 rounds.
14-pound medicine ball.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everyone.
Did you do box steps?
Yeah, with medicine ball.
Okay, so here's what I want some or most of you to do. Find your phone, open up Map My Run or whatever program you use to map out and track distances. And I want you to go right now for a 400-meter run out and turn around and walk fast on the way back. So this is establishing your 800-meter run, also known as a 400-meter out and a 400-meter back, unless you're lucky enough to live somewhere that you are on an 800-meter loop. Wouldn't that be amazing? Eric has thumbs up. He's got an 800-meter loop. So post in your results, and I'll see you guys in about 4 minutes or so. If it'll take you more than 4 minutes or 5 minutes to do that 800-meter, then do half of that. But my goal here is to try and help you guys establish an 800-meter route that you can go on. And this may or may not, or it may have something to do with an 800-meter workout that could be coming up soon. Right, Jordan? I don't know.
Right.
Right. What were you writing there, Jordan? I am. Oh, I'm on an 800-meter loop. That's lucky.
Do you cut the YouTube video here?
Probably. Probably would be a good idea. So let me get a closing for everyone. All right, Lori's doing a cool down row. So right now, Jordan, yeah, I see the pin video versus spotlight. When I spotlight, it goes to me.
Yeah.
So anyone watching right now, this is probably a good time to say goodbye. Thank you, Jordan, for that reminder. 15-minute AMRAP. It looks like their scores today are pretty much in the high fours, mid fives, maybe the low sixes. We have one person that almost finished 8 rounds, but that's the intended, or that's your goal for today, to try and get into the 5 rounds or so. And that's it. Good workout.